Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another one-on-one interview here on the So Does It Matter podcast. We appreciate you coming to So Does It Matter. This is where sane, normal people get to spend some time every day looking at the complete idiocy of the state of California and what's going on with the Democrats in Sacramento. And we try to have interviews with people that are making a difference in California. And in this case, I'm very pleased to be interviewing with somebody who would like to very much bring some common sense and sanity back to the state of California. My guest today is Sheriff Chad Bianco from Riverside County. Hi, Sheriff.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. Before I introduce him, I would like to take a moment to remind everybody watching that there's a few things that you can do to help us spread the word about this website. And if you find what the sheriff has to say compelling and interesting, you can help him because we would like you to share this. And if you're watching us on Substack, that's a like, that's a restack, obviously with a note. If you're watching us on YouTube, that's a subscribe, it's a like. But there's lots of options below here for sharing it on social media, sharing it on podcasts, all that stuff. So if you do that, it helps me and it helps the guy with the badge on right next to me as he's talking about bringing some law and order to the state of California. So, Sheriff, our quaint tradition here is that I go on to AI, I go on to ChatGPT, and I say, I have a podcast and I'm introducing Sheriff Chad Bianco. Will you write me an introduction? I've not seen it. You've not
Oh,
seen it,
wow.
but I'm
That's
just going to read it.
interesting.
But as I mentioned on almost every show, ChatGPT's figured out I'm a conservative, so we're in pretty good shape. But these turn out pretty well. So here we go. I'll put on my radio voice. This week on So Does It Matter, the podcast, we're joined by someone who has become one of the most recognizable and unapologetic law and order leaders in California, Riverside Sheriff Chad Bianco. Sheriff Bianco has earned a reputation statewide for calling out Sacramento's progressive policies, defending victims over criminals, and refusing to back down when it comes to protecting the people he serves. Under his leadership, Riverside County has pushed back against destructive mandates, fought to hold violent offenders accountable, and stood up for local control at a time when the state keeps trying to centralize power. Now he's taking that fight to the next level as a candidate for governor of California. We're going to talk about why he's running, what he believes is broken in this state, and what it will take to restore public safety, accountability, and some basic common sense. Sheriff Bianco, welcome to So Does It Matter. That's
Very
pretty
good. Thank
good.
you. That turned out pretty good.
This is why people are losing their jobs. You have to go to somebody and say, did you hear that podcast? Write down that introduction. That's the one we should be handing to people. Sheriff, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you're not having too much trouble with floods in Riverside County with all this rain.
So far, there hasn't been any floods. We've got tons of rain, and it's definitely muddy outside, but nothing with the floods yet.
Yeah, and to unconfuse the people watching, we're recording this the week of November 17th, even though it's going to air a week later. So this is in the rearview mirror when we're talking about floods. But Sheriff, I thought it might be a good place to start if we talked about what is it like to be the sheriff of a large county organization? And I guess it would be useful to have you maybe explain to us how those lessons that you're learning in this job would help prepare you for an even bigger job.
Yeah, it actually is a tiny little segue into why I'm doing this. And it's really just a lesser model. I look at Riverside County as kind of a microcosm of the state. We have everything that anywhere else in the state has to offer and no different than anywhere else. So all of the issues with farming, with agriculture, with theft, crime, schools, everything in the rest of the state. The only thing we don't have here, we always say, we've got snow, we've got mountains, we've got all those beautiful things. We don't have a beach. So other than that, it's okay. But the law enforcement world, I've been doing this for 32 years. And I actually use this in my speech as I'm talking, introducing myself to people that have not heard of me, is that for 32 years, I have strapped on a gun and a badge and gone to work every day to make everyone else's life better or safer. And I did that well. And if you do it well, if you do it ethically, if you do it morally, if you do it correctly, and you have that leadership ability, you obviously promote, you get to be a leader in law enforcement. And then in my case, I actually even took that to being elected twice as the sheriff of Riverside County. So for those that don't know, Riverside County is a large county. My office is the second largest in California and the fourth largest in the country. So we're very big, 4,400 employees, have 17 contract cities. So I deal with 17 city councils as technically their chief of police. I always joke with my chiefs of police in the county when they say, all of the hassle they have that they have to go to their city council meeting that night. I'm like, yeah, that's cute. I've got 17 of them that I have to
Right.
deal with. So we have all of those things as the sheriff. The amount of employees, the massive employees, a $1.3 billion budget, and I do it correctly. I do it as a conservative Republican, saving money. I don't go over budget. I've finished 7 years in the black, and I'll finish my 8th year in the black also. And it's just something how I believe government should be operated.
Well,
Since becoming
I think your perspective is very good too, because, when you get introduced as sheriff of Riverside County, people don't realize how large of a job that is. 4,400 employees, that massive budget. I spent some time working for the sheriff of Orange County. You and I were talking before the show. I spent a lot of years as a uniform reserve deputy sheriff. I didn't tell you, I also spent almost 6 years at the department in the media relations side,
uh,
full time. And I have just a tremendous amount of respect for what is involved to be the sheriff of a large county. I call it, it's like you have to have so many different facets. You have to, at one level, I mean, you're an elected official setting policy. You have to make sure that people are safe. You're also not kind of, you're a department head inside of a county. So you have to, even though you're an elected representative, you have to kind of go into this 5-member board of supervisors and get them to fund your budget the same way somebody who just is appointed to the next department over. So there's just so much to the job. And so I really appreciate what you're doing. So
there
how
is.
does this job prepare you to, how do you think about it in terms of running for governor or in terms of being the governor?
Yeah, I think it's everything about government. My entire life has been serving someone else. It's a public safety service and under the microscope for the last 8 years. So not only am I everything that I am doing is for someone else, I had to run for that office, I had to promise certain things, deliver certain things, and so now I have the history, the resume that says I do exactly what I say I'm going to do. Everything that I do within our agency is for someone else. I don't have a political agenda. I don't have a personal agenda. It's about making everyone else's life better. And within that comes the inefficiency, the bureaucratic red tape, the all of those things of government that I had to overcome in order to do that. And one of the things, especially in public safety, is the largest obstacle that I have now of keeping everyone in my county safe is Sacramento. The laws that are being passed in Sacramento and the agenda, the pro criminal, anti victim, anti public safety agenda that they have in Sacramento is truly destroying our state. So I have a bird's eye view and a frontline view of that and how I'm fighting that. But then because I'm the sheriff, the other industries for their issues reach to me for help with public safety. So the farming industry has massive amounts of issues with the state, but yet they're also being hit with crime. So as I'm helping them with crime, I learn what their other issues are concerning the state with
Sure.
regulations and all of those things. And it's no different. It's building community. It's the massive amounts of builders that we have. So everything about the brokenness of our state, I'm intimately involved with, and fortunately for me, I know how to fix it. It's not something I'm going to have to research to figure out where everything is broken.
This is
I'm
a-
living
this
it.
is this is a good transition, because as we move into kind of my next question for you, it's the proverbial softball. You've been speaking all around the state and spreading your message about why you want to be governor and what you would do for the state. So you're now speaking to a large audience of many thousands of people. Why don't you take a minute and share with all of our viewers and listeners your vision for the state of California and what you would do as governor?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, I'm a student of history. I enjoy history and the history of government. So my vision for California is a government that government was intended to be. The primary responsibility of government is public safety, and that includes law enforcement and fire. We have to make crime a crime again. We have to hold people accountable for crimes. We rely on an adherence to law for the success of a civilized society. And if we don't have that, we are not going to be successful as a civilized society. So we have to hold people accountable. We have to keep people safe. There are many with my other three issues that I have. It doesn't matter how well I do those. If we're not safe in California, no one's going to care about the price of gas or about whether or not what's happening in their schools. They're just simply not safe. They're going to move. So public safety is number one. Fire goes along with that. I know that we've had massive fires in recent history. We have to be honest of what those fires are from. It has nothing to do with fire. It has nothing to do with anything other than a broken agenda with regulations that have prevented the fire agencies from mitigating the areas around our homes and our communities, that when that fire does come, because they happen every year, that we can defend the structures. Bad policy, bad government policy, and activism has prevented that from happening. So we will rid the state of all of that. The fire department will be allowed to clean the hills, clean the brush, get rid of the fuel that causes these fires to get so big. So public safety, number one. Number two is infrastructure. Infrastructure is everything from our roadways, our waterways, our water supply, electricity, natural gas to heat our homes, the electricity to power everything that we have. Everything in California is absolutely failing. We will rid ourselves of this horrific agenda of green energy. Electric and solar will never power anything.
Well, matter of fact, we were just, I wrote a column this morning about, which will now be last week when people read it, but about how Newsom went back to Brazil to his climate conference and actually had the nerve to say, well, we need climate change policy for affordability, when it's literally the opposite. And then
Yeah.
as you brought up, we have had more carbon. If you care about carbon emission, if you think human-made carbon emission is causing the planet to evaporate in a heat ball, if you think that's going to happen and you want to eliminate carbon, we've had more carbon emissions from wildfires in California in 2 years than we've had savings in the entire history of all of these draconian programs in the state of California.
Yeah.
I think that's the agenda. Anyway, I'm hijacking your time. You go ahead.
No, that's okay. It's definitely all about that. And it even goes one step further, and we'll talk about solar and wind. So the amount of carbon that it takes to go into making solar panels and making the wind turbine generators, they can never recover and make up in their lifetime. So it has nothing to do with carbon footprint. It has nothing to do with saving. It was just a transfer of money from one industry to another, and it's harming us. So in my energy policy is we will eventually we'll hold the electrical companies accountable. For one, they're operating on a business model that is to make everyone profits on a publicly traded business, and the infrastructure in California that they should be maintaining, that they are not required to maintain, is destroying California. They don't have the infrastructure to give us all electricity. They're 100-year-old, 150-year-old power poles that blow down in the wind and then cause these fires. I mean, it's just the destruction that they are causing, and allowed to just make the billions of dollars that they make by raising our rates, just doesn't make sense. So not only will we hold them accountable, we'll move our energy to a nuclear powered electricity like the rest of the world, because if you really were trying to get to something that was going to be safer for the environment and more green, it's nuclear. It's cheaper, more affordable, it's safer for the environment, it's more reliable. So we'll definitely move toward that. Water, California has never had a water problem in the history of California. We get more water than any other state in the country. We have a water
Right now, it's all
management.
coming from the sky right now.
Absolutely. And in Southern California, especially, all you have to do is go out to any of our rivers. For the rest of the country, you have no idea what a California river is. It's all concrete. It's just a big gutter. And it takes every amount of that water and runs it straight out into the ocean. We don't save anything here. And in fact, we are destroying dams rather than building dams. So it is a purposeful control of the amount of water we have, so the government can control our rates. It can control our farming community, which right now it's destroying our farming community in the name of providing money and agriculture business to other countries. California supplies the country with agriculture, and we're slowly diminishing that level, and we're buying from other countries and shipping it into California because our farms are being destroyed. So our water issue will be fixed immediately. It's actually easy because we don't have dams because of regulations that are put in place to appease environmentalists, and we're going to do away with those immediately. So that's number two, is the infrastructure piece. Number three is education. We have failed one generation for sure, possibly even two generations of Californians in the education world. It's government's responsibility to educate and train our kids to enter adulthood and be productive members of society, and we have failed that miserably. There's more of an interest in government indoctrination instead of education. I met a businessman that coined this for me, but he said that the problem that he has with all of our education system is they just keep calling them students. And he said they're not students, they're his future employees, and they are doing nothing to prepare his future employees to enter the workforce. So we will realign and remodel what our education system does and is for. We'll have a voucher system for not only public schools, but private, charter, and homeschooling. Within our school system, one of the big failures that we have now is we've been lied to for so often we didn't know we were being lied to, but now the evidence is becoming crystal clear. You will not have to vaccinate your kids to get them into school in California. We're one of the few that requires that, and it's just asinine. And there will never again in California, with me as the governor, be boys participating in girls' sports. They will not be in your daughter's locker room. We're going to put common sense back into the reality of California in every aspect. The overarching issue that probably most people are concerned about, it's a tie, public safety, but the cost of living in California is just driving everyone out. And the cost of living is it's both, not only taxes, but regulation. It's gas. It's the price of gas. It's the price of a home. It's the price of food. Everything revolves around transportation. So us having the highest cost of gas in the country, it's no surprise that we are the highest cost of living in the country. The issue that I have on how to lower it, not only will we get rid of the regulations that are killing business in this state, making it the worst business friendly in the country, we have to realize that all business regulations, all residential regulations, regulation in general in California are not laws. They can be removed by the governor. And I will remove all of these regulations that are preventing us from building homes, making homes unaffordable, preventing us from building dams, preventing us from building electric plants, preventing us from drilling our own oil and then becoming oil independent. You talk about the carbon emission that we were mentioning earlier. We import 80% of the oil that we use here in California. We import it from other countries. So it has to come over by pipe, truck, boat, whatever the case may be. And that anti-green footprint, that carbon footprint is so much worse than if we just drilled it ourselves and refined it ourselves here. It's silly that we are doing that. But what has happened in California over decades is California government seems like its entire mission is to appease activists at the expense of the rest of Californians. And we'll end that.
Trust me, Sheriff, the activists that they're pleasing, these are the ones who they don't say the quiet part out loud, but when they hear about the prices of gas going up, what they're actually saying to themselves is, that's great because we want to get all these people out of their cars.
That's right.
And they don't want to say that. Gavin Newsom doesn't want to say that, but they see the high prices and the regulations as features, not faults, in their very extreme, agenda. And it's so
in government, if a government is run correctly, which I am going to run it correctly, I will not ignore activism. We have to listen to activism on both sides. But what is supposed to happen is adults are supposed to be sitting at the table, taking all of the information that we have from everyone, and then making an informed decision on what's the right decision for everyone else. And that hasn't happened in California in decades.
I have an insight a little bit as to how a sheriff would have that. I remember going back to in Orange County, right after I hired on with the department, we had this big high profile issue. A poor little girl named Samantha Runyon was abducted and ultimately murdered. But in that process, our sheriff had to put together a command center and had everyone at the table, and so much was going on. But watching the leadership of a sheriff and the ability to get everyone's input from around the table, and everyone had their perspective. And then watching a chief executive who knew what they were doing, sort through it, process it, ask a lot of questions, and then ultimately everyone looked and said, okay, where are we going? And here was the direction, and then everybody went. And you kind of realized that you get a perspective, I got a perspective sitting in the room about what kind of training you get to be a chief executive of a state from leading a large law enforcement agency.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and it kind of goes back to the question before, and you answered it better than I did about what has prepared you for that. And I can tell you in my life, and when I even go into other government entities and we're trying to solve problems, I have been on the job training from the time I started to fix emergencies. That's all we do all day long as a deputy is you answer 911 calls, which is someone's emergency. You have to go there, you have to get limited information, but hopefully correct information from everyone involved. And then you have to solve that problem only to move on to the next emergency. So over time, there's not even any such thing as an emergency anymore. It's just a problem. And it's how do you fix a problem? And the higher you go up in law enforcement, and then you get to my issues that I have as the executive, as the leader of this agency, the people that I tell my wife, even she'll say, "What'd you do today?" And so I'll tell her, and she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you have to do that every day." Or what did you do with that? And it's like, well, that wasn't a problem for me. We just fix it. Everything is just
Right.
needs to be fixed. Identify a problem and then fix it. And that's how government's supposed to work.
Well, I guess this is a good question to ask you. What kind of a job you think? I know you're not running against Gavin Newsom, but in some respects you are because it's his agenda that's really been in place in California the last 7 years. And I have yet to hear any one of the Democrats running for governor who have said anything critical about the way Gavin Newsom runs the state. So maybe I should ask you, are you critical of the way he's running the state?
Every single aspect. I was asked one time during a debate with Democrats. It was only Democrats and me on the stage. And they asked, what is he all these great things that he's done? And they're coming up with the most silly things I could ever imagine that I actually don't even know if they're true. It's like I've never heard that in my life. And I don't think that's a big deal anyway. The person said free school lunches. And it was just blowing me away. And then it got to me, and I'm like, well, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone right here because there is not one single thing he has done that is good. And there may be something obscure that maybe I'm not thinking about, but overall life of Californians, there is not one single thing that is better for us than when he took over, and actually things are much worse. The price of homes are unattainable. Gasoline just keeps going up and up, and we know now it's going to probably go toward $8 a gallon within the next year. Electricity just keeps skyrocketing, and he just keeps raising the rates while they're making billions. Homeless just keeps getting worse and worse and worse every single year while billions and billions of dollars go unaccountable. There's nothing good that he is doing. I will fix the price of gas. It's based on regulation. Those regulations will be removed and we will drill our own oil. I will eliminate the regulations on the building industry so builders will actually be able to build homes that are affordable and not have to pay the government all of that money up front that they have to recover. So it's a big lie that we have been presented over the last couple of decades, but particularly with Newsom in office, of these wonderful things that they've run out of lies. And so now it's just an attack on Trump because they can't say anything about, look how great California is. Why wouldn't the country do what California does? Because you can't, because no one wants to do what California does. So there isn't anything that I would be proud of if I was him. It's a disaster. California has been made far worse in the last 7 years.
So we're going to go into our lightning round here in a minute, ask you a few questions so that the people watching get to know you a little bit better. But before we do that, if somebody's listening to you right now and wants to find out more about your campaign or how to get involved, how do they do that?
The easiest is through the website, biancoforgovernor.com. We have, you can sign up for information. 30,000 foot level is all on the website, or we have all of the social media platforms, Sheriff Chad Bianco. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those things.
All right,
Sheriff Chad Bianco.
people can find you, and we're going to put links to all those things below this interview. So if
Very
you're
good.
watching it on Substack, the links will be right below. If you're on YouTube, look in the show notes. All right, are you ready for the lightning round? The goal here, you're not a lawyer or a politician. Well, I guess you're kind of a politician, so we'll see how long it takes you. So question number one in the lightning round is, what was the last book you read, Sheriff?
Well, I probably don't even know because I don't have time to read. I read a Bible book, a devotional book every morning.
I
So
think
other than that, that's about it.
So I think you're pretty safe saying that you read the Bible. Well,
Yes, that is
that's the old
definitely safe
I
to
think
say.
last I checked, and I have checked recently, that is the most well-read book in the world.
It
So
is.
you're doing all right. So what's the last film you watched? And it can't be the film of a robbery.
Yes. No. We don't watch movies either, but we did go and watch the Reagan movie, and we both, Denise and I, absolutely loved it.
Well, that was a great movie. I really enjoyed it myself. All right. Besides Donald Trump, and the reason we exclude him is because everyone wants to say Donald Trump, who is your favorite American president of all time? And there's a lot to choose from.
There is historically, even through school, was always my favorite, Abraham Lincoln.
All right, the man, the time for he had his own time for choosing. I know Reagan gave the speech, but Lincoln was a great president. So that's a solid pick. You're not the first person to pick him, but he's a solid pick. All right, it's a little bit dicier now. Who is your least favorite president of all time?
Well, there's probably been a few, but we were living in today's day and age, and the absolute worst for public safety for this country was our last president, Biden.
All right, so Otto Pen Joe was the man. It's unclear if his bad policies were his own or if he simply let his staff enact bad policies, but either way, yeah, Joe Biden's, you're not the first person to mention him either. All right, who's a current world leader, excluding President Trump, who you admire the most?
I like the Italian prime minister.
She gets a lot of props too. And then what about a current world leader you despise the most? And by the way, people have told me this is the hardest one to answer because we've got some really bad actors on the international stage.
We have, I'm going to say Justin Trudeau. And
Really? This is the first. We've not had
really,
a Justin Trudeau. So tell us why. I'm going to give you a little extra time.
we know who the other leaders are. I mean, you know who the president of China is, and you know exactly what he thinks and what he does. We know who the leader of Russia. We know exactly who that person is. Trudeau represents everything that is wrong that I believe is wrong. The complete failure of leadership is that he's just like Newsom. Everything is a lie. Everything is fake. Everything is a forced pushed agenda to make you believe something else while he's doing something else. And I just think that that is not only the worst attribute of any type of leader, but for a world leader, dishonesty and flat out lying to the public. There is no work. There's no worse thing.
I could draw a parallel to the governor of California, but we got to keep going. All right. So if you could wave a magic wand, if you could do that and change one thing in California policy, I guess now, knowing that if you get elected governor, you'll change a lot of things. But if you could get a head start by changing one thing, what do you think it would be?
Probably our policy on oil. That would affect more. It's all about regulation and changing our policy and agenda on oil. We will be oil independent with me as the governor, but that leads down into being able to fix everything else.
All right. Sheriff, thank you so much for giving us so much generously of your time. We really enjoyed hearing from you. As you all heard, it's biancoforgovernor.com if you want to get more and plugged in, if you want to have the sheriff come and speak in your neighborhood. He's traveling the state. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And then a reminder to those of you watching that the best thing that you can do to both help this man and me and this website at the same time is share this. Just cut and paste it into your social media feeds and let other people hear from the sheriff directly. There's no better way. And we really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Sheriff.
Absolutely. Thank you.